Blackstone has set an ambitious goal of hitting $1 trillion in overall assets by next year in its private wealth business. And Japan is set to be part of that push. Blackstone's global head of private wealth, Joan Solotar, is visiting the country right now and joins us exclusively today from Tokyo. Joan, really great to have you with us. And we've sort of been talking about this this goal for a number of years. And it's funny, we're sort of creeping up to the deadline now. Tell us about why you're in Japan and what sort of avenues of growth you're seeing.
Yeah, so thank you for having me. Why Japan? Many reasons. First of all, Japan is the second largest private wealth market in the world. You have a government here that is encouraging a shift from savings to investment. Blackstone has a long history in Japan, not just because we've been investing here since 2007, but Nikko actually was one of the earliest investors in our very first private equity fund. So as Steve Schwarzman likes to say, without Japan, there would be no Blackstone. So we see a lot of opportunity because investors here want the same thing as investors anywhere else. They want good returns, growth, and higher income.
Against a backdrop of increasing global volatility, and a lot of it is coming from America, right? We had a great big take piece looking at the sort of Asia Sell America movement, and a lot of that is also happening across private wealth, across family offices, for example. Is that trend to sort of almost de-dollarize and move into other parts of the world, like key markets in Asia, something that you've seen as well from flows?
Yeah, it's been interesting. We've been happily, or pleased, I should say, with the resilience of the private wealth investor everywhere in the world. So we had 1 week where we saw a slowdown, but flows have resumed. I would say just if I looked sequentially week to week, the last few weeks it's improved. Today, even in the U.S., consumer confidence was, higher than it's been in 4 months, the biggest increase since 2007. So I think there's a fair amount of resiliency. And also in times of volatility, when investors are nervous about public markets, they tend to gravitate towards private markets, which are more stable and less volatile.
Yeah, there are some challenges around private markets as well, notwithstanding the interest around transparency, access also. You're there in Japan. How do you open up private markets to Mrs. Watanabe?
I would say the interest here, again, is very similar to what we see in other parts of the world. So if you go back to 2022, it became clear that you just cannot count on diversification from having a pure stock and bond portfolio. It's basically you're buying at net asset value rather than the highs and the lows subject to the emotion of the market. And obviously, we've seen tremendous volatility in public markets. If you just look at the U.S. market, heavy concentration in just 7 names. And just finally, private markets are multiples the size of public markets. So, I think many advisors, many investors recognize that if they're not in the private markets, they're actually missing probably the biggest part of the investment space, certainly as it relates to companies and also properties. And I would say we actually share a fair amount of information. So there's a lot of disclosure. Investors understand what they're owning. And so I think it's actually pretty transparent. And the proof is in the pudding, right? We've been managing these funds for a very long time. They are cycle tested. We are the only firm at this point with scale and history across all the major asset classes. And that's, how we've built our private equity business off the backs of the good performance of our institutional investing teams.
How much wealth in Japan do you feel is untapped at the moment? Are you able to attach a numerical value to that?
So I would say the following. More than 50% of private wealth assets are still sitting in cash or cash-like securities. That is greater than probably almost anywhere in the world. So that's a massive opportunity. It's hard to size exactly what will go into privates, but less than 1% today sits in private investments. So we're talking about the earliest stages of investors, right? You really didn't even have these products available to the market. And the rules are changing here, which will allow for some of these funds to move onshore rather than attract just offshore funds. So I think you're going to see a lot more product coming. I think you're going to see flows continue. We certainly have a lot of demand. I don't anticipate that is going to slow down. If anything, I think it will continue to accelerate. We're super excited. We're building out our team here. And this is a very long-term effort that we have going. We've been here just in our business more than 4 years, but we think about it in terms of staying put and building, quite an enduring business. I'm very optimistic about Japan.
All right, Joan Solotar, Global Head of Private Wealth at Blackstone. Thanks so much for joining us.